Really, Miyazaki? We're just gonna announce a new Elden Ring game and drop a trailer out of nowhere. And here I was looking forward to a nice, quiet evening. Hello, dreamers. Eugene the author here, and Miyazaki has blessed us with an announcement that I don't think anybody saw coming. Now, he's been saying for a while that Elden Ring, he didn't have any sequel plans at the moment, and I think it's fair to say that Elden Ring, in terms of the direction that the narrative can go in, is the most open-ended and expansive of all the titles that they've done before, right? There's so many different endings to split off from. There's so many different quest lines that have such big ramifications for different things. There's just such densely packed content into that narrative. And then we got Shadow of the Erdtree, and while it didn't answer all of our questions, I feel like Shadow of the Erdtree answered a lot of them. And we also went on to deal with the avatars of the various gods and these forces of nature in the world. Everything from dealing with Vermina, dealing with the Rot God, dealing with the Mother of Fingers, dealing with the Host of Madness, dealing with Baal, and even having some very interesting lore implications, like a subtle nod to the fact that our Tarnished may well be a demigod, with the Dragon Priestess specifically calling you her lord in place of Placidusax, which has certain connotations in the narrative. But now here we are with Elden Ring Nightreign announced, and I have some mixed feelings about it. There's been some confirmation so far, and you can kind of read the landscape. So Nightreign is a title that's going to be a hero-based or champion-based game. So think something like Dota or Overwatch, where there's set hero characters that you're playing as. It's specifically worded to be a cooperative experience, which implies that it's primarily meant to be an online type of deal, maybe even online only. I have some hope with the specific wording. Become a hero. Take command of uniquely skilled heroes, each possessing their own abilities and distinct flair. While individually powerful, their skills grow even more formidable when united as a team. So maybe, but I don't know. I try to be curious as opposed to just being like, oh, this is going to be terrible. But without further ado, let's dive into the trailer and then we can talk more about the game proper. Okay, so the first thing here is these massive shadow people in this ruined area. I think it's a little bit early for me to call out where specifically this is. I have seen comments that it appears to take place in a condensed version of Limgrave, and that seems to track from some of what we'll see later in the trailer. But this specific ruined watchtower over here, is my cursor? Okay, this watchtower over here, does invoke some Limgrave feels, but these towering shadow beings, I don't recall us seeing anything specifically like this in Elden Ring proper, but it does immediately make me think of the Shadow of the Erdtree. And then color is very important, so we have a lot of purple, which immediately makes me think about Saint Trina. We have this large visible moon with this sun here, which I think about the shadows in the sun also, Mikola wanting to make an eclipse to try to bring Godwyn back. So all of these things come to mind immediately. Okay, we have a divine tower here. And I don't know if this is a divine tower that we've seen before. Like this spacing here. Like I almost want to say that this divine tower is supposed to be the tower in Weeping Peninsula. That's kind of what this looks like to me. But then we have these stony growths that are kind of draconic in appearance, and Dark Souls specifically has this idea, and I believe it's vaguely referenced in Elden Ring, but Dark Souls has this idea of dragons being tied to stone as well. So that's interesting to me, and I don't quite know what castle this is, but it would track that if this is the divine tower that's in Weeping, that this is, oh god, whose tower is that? Castle Morn. It stands to reason that this would be Castle Morn. Okay, so this is a mechanic that's called out in the description of the game as well. This idea of this shadow, this night sweeping through the land. Can I make this higher quality? 720p, the very idea. So this idea of the night sweeping through. And I think, again, color is very important. So it's worth calling out. St. Trina is associated with a lot of purples and blues, but not necessarily the shade of blue. And I think it's worth noting too that this is kind of like a flame spreading out as well. Which actually, hold on. So 2 items come to mind for me right away. And that's the Ghost Flame Torch, which is found in the Night City, as well as St. Trina's Torch, which where is St. Trina's Torch located? Consecrated Snowfield, okay. But the Ghost Flame Torch, you find it on a body in Nokron, which is the remnant of the City of the Night that is of the Night Folk that Marika had wiped out like she did anybody that was not a part of the order that she was ushering forth. And so we have this description: metal torch that burns with cold ghost flame, which looks a lot like what we were just looking at. Tool of the fallen hawks who prowl the underground rivers. That's very interesting because we have a Birdman creature. It's one of the playable champions. When the band's last embers were used up in their long search, they began to burn the bones of their fellows, acquiring the cold ghost flame, but sealing their fate as dwellers of the underground for all eternity. And again, so that wording of a band, right? I know some people were a little salty about my Mikola Griffith comparisons, which if you play Shadow of the Erd Tree, I was kind of right about a lot of those. But this band specifically, again, makes me think of a war band. And it's not a coincidence that it's the band of the fallen hawks. Come on. But yeah, so that flame looks like the ghost flame. Okay. Let's go back. Let's look at that frame by frame. I'm just curious if we can call it anything from the armor that person's wearing. Okay, so it's kind of too dark to tell anything. Okay. So this, I could be wrong, because I don't remember. The proximity of things looks weird, right? But this looks like Gatefront. This looks like Gatefront to me. The Gatefront ruins, Gatefront. You can see a troll jumping down to get you. I believe there's a tower. So this looks like the Gatefront area. And again, we have these colossal shadow beings, which I have just an absolutely out there theory on, but I'll get to that when the time comes. But again, we have this idea of the night corrupting or consuming the land in these blue flames. And this almost looks like it's some kind of runic lettering also. Okay, so we have a Side of Grace, and this again is very Limgrave. So this is the Side of Grace by the bridge, south of the Gatefront ruins, if I'm not mistaken. It's interesting that the Side of Grace is surrounded by the darkness and the night and the flames, but it's not corrupted by it. And this is probably just the way I happen to pause it, but doesn't this kind of look like a scary shadow dude? Ooh, okay. Hold on. Let's get a better look at your... What did I do? Let's get a tighter look at that shield. Okay. I can't quite place this symbol on that shield. I don't know if we've seen that symbol before. I mean, so it's a little bit of a leap, but it looks similar to, right? Like that's very similar. I mean, I would say it's not exactly the same, but it's a very similar image. I don't think we've ever seen these bird creatures before. Now, this armor set to me, and we'll let her talk, but this armor set to me is interesting, right? It's very Carrion, right? The Carrion royal family is very blue with their armor set. And when they said champions, when they said heroes, I was kind of expecting certain specific figures. Like I was expecting Vike to show up. I was expecting maybe even Godwyn to show up. Hero is a very specific word in the Elden Ring universe as well. Mesmer, Godwyn, they were considered heroes of their particular wars, even if Mesmer was like a dark hero. And Vike was, he's the guy on the cover. He's the person who came very close to becoming, sitting on the throne. And so, but the blue is very Carrion, and the whole motif is very Carrion. And the helmet kind of, to me, it's a little, it invokes a little bit of Melania and invokes a little bit of R'Lana as well. I don't think that's R'Lana by any measure, but right, like, I mean, obviously not the same, but just that idea of having the kind of filigree. As I look at it now, I'm like, actually, it's not similar at all, but certainly it's got a little bit of that kind of winged motif. It's got a little bit of that kind of winged motif that Melania has going on. So that's interesting. And is that the Zweihander that they're wielding?
Seekers of Redemption.
Okay, so that right there, let me let her talk a little bit more.
You were chosen. Thrown together by forces beyond our control.
Okay, so a few things to unpack here. Like, one, this is very Limgrave, but also, again, like just kind of the placement of certain things. Like, is there an Everjail right there? Because certainly there wasn't a war camp right there, I don't believe. So, okay. Seekers of Redemption. So these are people who have done something. These are people that, whether they believe that they have, or whether they've been judged by the world, whether they've been judged by the gods of this world, these people are guilty of something. They're seeking redemption for something that they've done. They were chosen, right? So to me, that invokes a sense, and this is as good a time as I need to talk briefly about this idea of, like, generally people approach theory crafting one of two ways. They either approach it very literally, or they approach it a bit more abstractly, or both. And so the idea is that if I issue the statement, Millicent is the daughter of Melania, depending on how rigid or how fluid your mentality and your personality are, if you are a more rigid thinker, then you would take that sentence at face value, and you would take it to mean I'm literally saying Melania got pregnant and she gave birth and Millicent is her daughter. If you have a more abstract mindset, then you would potentially look at that statement instead as, she's a daughter in so much as she's looked at as a daughter, in so much as she's a disciple, in so much as she's a follower, in so much, right? So there's different ways to take those statements. And so here, Seekers of Redemption, that implies to me you were chosen. That implies to me that there are probably quite a few people that are seeking redemption, but for whatever reason, this core group of heroes that we're going to play as, they have been chosen to try to attain that redemption they're seeking.
You were chosen. Thrown together by forces beyond our control.
And the thrown together by forces beyond our control, so there's this, as you go deeper in the trailer, it looks like there's actually some bosses from Dark Souls that are showing up here as well. Like, it just straight up looks like the Nameless King as a boss fight here. Spoilers. So, the forces beyond our control, I feel like that is, this is a world, right, thrown together by,
You were chosen.
Thrown together by forces beyond our control. That wording also implies that this is a patchwork world. This is a world where things are not going to be where we're used to them being. And things are going to be cobbled together, be it enemy placements, be it the environment, be it the bosses we encounter. So that all comes to mind. Also, this whole deal about calling down this great winged bird of prey and riding it, like, that's really cool.
By forces beyond our control.
Okay, so right away, this makes me think of two things. One, this kind of favors a Lake of Rot type environment, but immediately this makes me think about the Madness forest that you encounter in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. It's this very kind of ruined, decrepit, overgrown, decaying, creepy place. And that motif is a lot more, gold. But I think about a Lake of Rot, and I think about the Forest of Madness. I don't remember what that zone was called. I hate spiders. Okay, so we get a better look at our champion here. Right, this is very Melania. I should know this aspect of it. This symbol I should know. But this is very Carian royal family. This looks maybe like the Zweihander. The winged helm is very Melania. And, oh god, hold on. This is making me think of something, but I can't think of what. There's a particular set that comes to mind when I see that. It's a little Rakshasa. A little bit. Not really. Just similar, but not really. It's a little winged serpent, a little bit. It's a little Death Knight. Just the front area. But that patterning, it's almost like a fingerprint patterning. And it's almost like a little miniature dragon on there. St. Trina's Blossom is a helmet. The motif does feel very Carian to me. Yeah, I don't know. The wings make me think of Melania. And the symbol here makes me think of a dragon. This makes me think of fingerprint. The rest of this is very Carian royal family, or Carian knights. Okay, so here we've got this Hawkman, or Hawk person, right? Or some manner of bird. I don't know if that's a hawk, but I don't think it's a coincidence that we have what appears to be Ghost Flame, and then we have a hawk person involved in this battle. Interesting. The blonde, I have some thoughts. Okay, what are you? Are you a new boss? So right away, Birdman gets some pretty crazy lift, and we've got a very acrobatic dodge here. And from the graphics and the framing and the filming, this looks like this is gameplay. This is not just cinematic now, this is gameplay. So this very acrobatic dodge, this flying leap, like this looks like something we can do gameplay. This kind of makes me think about, like, Dark Souls has that creature, like certain enemies will just rip apart and become these gigantic, like, grotesque beast things. It's also very Akira, with like the grotesque limbs sticking out everywhere. And also kind of makes me think about the Erdtree boss at the bottom of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Or, I'm sorry, the Shadow Tree avatar. Right, like this makes me think about the Shadow Tree avatar as well. So we've got team attacks. That's really cool. Also horns, so maybe an Omen is one of our heroes. I love that grappling hook. And that's very Bloodhound Fang, right? This acrobatic sliding in, slashing, backflipping. Okay, not gonna lie, first time I saw this trailer, I was like, is 2B a guest character? Right, like, I'm not crazy. That's very 2B inspired. Okay, so right away we have this considerably more acrobatic style of combat, which I have mixed feelings about. This is a pretty big change for Elden Ring and for FromSoft titles. I mean, I guess Sekiro's is pretty acrobatic, but I'm torn between, I'm like, ooh, this is a little arcadey, as well as, but this looks really cool. Okay, so it looks like Zamor is, this Zamor warrior is against our champion. And I'm a little rusty, right? Like, again, this is very Carian Royal Knights here. which to me would mean that this, if it is carrion, then there would be no reason for this to be the Erd Tree symbol. And again, it doesn't look the same at all. It just looks similar. What's the carrion royal family crest? I mean, so this isn't a carrion symbol, but let's just get a little out there for a moment, and let's say, right, I mean, we had a secret sister that we didn't know about, secret to us, right? We didn't know that Renala had a twin sister or a little sister. So just putting this out there, everything has a purpose, right? So the fact that we have three marks here, to me, this kind of could represent three individuals, three philosophies. Nothing that Miyazaki does is done just to do it. So the fact that there's three symbols here and they can join in the middle, that has some kind of deeper meaning. Okay, so the ancient hero of Zamor, these long-lived warriors clad in biting freezing winds, are said to have been the mortal enemies of the fire giants since time immemorial. So it's interesting to me that we have a Zamor fight. Probably that's what that Everjail was, but interesting.
Tragedy must be averted.
Is that Letta? Right, I mean, she has a clasp kind of like Melina. And Letta's known to traipse about all in white. I mean, if nothing else... Wait, hold on. Not the same by any measure, but similar. Similar design. Certainly inspired by. But being clad in white, being a blonde, that makes me think about Letta. And certainly there's some similarities between these character designs as well.
Tragedy must be averted. And for that, I need your help.
Okay, let's get a look at our...
Be averted.
So, what I want to know is, are you an omen? Your skin tone, to me, implies that you probably just have a very stylized helmet. Omens tend to have kind of more ashen skin. Is that a skull? No. Just, the way his costume bleeds through, I thought he had like a skull attached. But that is a gnarly looking axe. With a serpent motif, which makes me think Mesmer, it makes me think Rykard, it makes me think the god devouring serpent. I should say with what appears to be a serpent motif. Maybe we'll get a better look at him later.
And for that,
like immediately right there. So okay, looking at the skin tone, maybe not an omen. I need to see his face up close.
I need your help.
Are those horns attached to your helmet or your body? That's the question. And it's difficult to say. Okay, so we have a few things here. We have like a ghost Erd Tree looking thing, right? It's got the twisting, gnarled, 20 branches, so That's interesting. I wonder if that's going to be some mechanic. I would hazard maybe those are set locations that you call the bird down from. But also, this individual that we're seeing, this is very Drake inspired. Like, this is very Drake armor. Just, I don't know, this is very, like, kind of dragon wing inspired to me. We have kind of this feathered thing. They look to be like an archer type character. Interesting. I'm trying to think, like, where we encountered that was volcanic, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's Volcano Manor. Maybe this is a little bit of Volcano Manor, because there's that kind of underground temple area. That's very Sekiro, that little kick up the wall thing. That's pretty neat. Too hard to tell who this statue could be representing.
Far from over.
Okay. Am I crazy? That's the Nameless King. Like, that's the Nameless King. Right? Like, I'm not crazy. That's literally just the Nameless King. Which to me implies that this is going to be a little bit of the greatest hits of FromSoft titles. The fact that the Nameless King is showing up here, I would hazard there will probably be seasons to this game, like most of these hero-based games, and I would hazard that each season is probably going to deal with particular FromSoft titles. I don't think we're going to see an Armored Core crossover, but you know what? Actually, stranger things have happened. So I would hazard we're going to deal with different FromSoft titles as each season of this game progresses.
Little pillager, bent on sacking the lands of gold.
Okay. We can't let that go without, right? So, mighty dragon, thou art a true-born heir. Lend me thy strength, O kindred. Deliver me unto greater heights. Well, a lowly tarnished playing as a lord, I command thee kneel. I am the lord of all that is golden. Come on. I am lord of all that is golden, and one day we'll return together to our home bathed in rays of gold. Again, nothing is said just to be said. Also, that sword's really cool. So, right, we're fighting an omen in what looks to be Mohg's domain.
Sacking the little pillager, bent on sacking the lands of gold.
So the lands of gold, right? I mean, there's obviously Godfrey is obsessed with gold, and there's the Golden Order. So it stands to reason to presume that this is the land of gold, right? From a metaphorical sense. You have Godfrey as well. So and then, Mikola does a lot with alloyed gold as well. So there's a lot of things to kind of take into account there. But also Little Pillager, right? Somebody who is this insignificant thing coming to take the bounty of this world. That to me, right, that's got me thinking about this idea that maybe these heroes are representative of different FromSoft titles as well. Or these are individuals who are coming to take something from the Golden Order, coming to take something from the king of this realm. But the fact that we're little pillagers, right? We're here to take something that this individual feels like is his. And that, I think, maybe ties into some of that redemption that they're seeking.
I will swat away any and all who dare approach.
I mean, come on. So, okay, we've got a scepter with a hand on it, for one thing. Finger Maidens, Mother of Fingers, right, so we have a scepter with a hand on it. But these eyes, not the same, but similar. And this individual is crouched in what appears to be the symbol of, the Golden Order, perhaps. It's a little hard to see it, but... And anytime I see a whole bunch of eyes, I think about the inside. I think about Bloodborne, right? But I mean, right? Like, that's the symbol of the Golden Order. So that's just very interesting. Like, so this individual seems to be somebody in a position of power, maybe somebody very shamanistic, maybe somebody very devout. Maybe this is some manifestation of an outer god. Too early to say. So this is Radahn's arena. And that Cerberus can split. That feels very Bloodborne to me, that Cerberus. Also kind of makes me think of Sif, but maybe that's because I just started playing Dark Souls Remastered. So...
Band together and prepare to claim.
I mean, so the coloration on this, and the scar and the wounding, this makes me think about the Glowmite Queen. White, and particularly kind of mottled, fleshy white, is associated with the Godskins. So that's just my first initial instinct. I feel like this should be saying something to me, but that's just my first instinct looking at that.
The life.
And this looks like a variation of the door that Mikola passed through to become a god.
Of the Night Lord.
And then we have our name drop. Okay, so that's it for our lore. I think we get another look at... Yeah, so each time somebody is shown in a position of prominence in FromSoft art, they are typically a main narrative influence in some capacity. I mean, Vike kind of fell to the wayside. But we've got our hero, perhaps, posing with their sword, and we have the bodies of their comrades. We have the bird individual, we have I think that's the lady, and who's to say, right? Is he mourning his fallen comrades? Did something happen that he felt like he had to take matters into his own hands and deal with his comrades like Letta decided to do? And again, we have this kind of trifecta of images. And I mean, we cannot talk about Nightreign and the Night Lord without talking about the Night Folk, right? So Marika went to the Lands Between. Marika has this thing where she total warfare, total obliviation of an entire people, of an entire nation, of an entire religion, anything that defies the Golden Order. And there's this debate that's being had amongst the community that we'll probably have forever and ever, amen, about, did Marika shatter the Elden Ring in her grief over Godwyn's slaughter, or did she do it to break free of the outer god that was pulling the strings on her life, who gave her the power to avenge her people? Because and both interpretations are valid. We don't have enough to confirm one interpretation in either direction, right? And both can be true, right? Her son may have just been the straw that broke the camel's back. But if you want to consider Marika to be more tragic, despite all the horrible, horrible things she's done, you can raise the question from the moment she was given the power to overthrow the Glowmite Queen. How much was she ever really in control of her destiny? How much was she ever really in control of her actions? And the fact that her other half, Radagon, is very beholden to the Golden Order. How much did Marika ever have a chance to have any control over her own life? So you can interpret her as this genocidal maniac. You can interpret her as this tragic plaything of the gods. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But the Night Folk were another of the peoples and religious groups in the world that Marika, in her campaign, that their beliefs were outlawed, they were wiped out. And you can see in Nokron, you can see these giant statues, right? Like, in particular, this makes me think of like the young yet towering sister of Latena, who's given the birthing droplet. But this is rather ceremonial garb, rather kind of matronly garb, and so perhaps this was now giant individuals in FromSoft lore are typically associated with a great magnitude of power and a form of godhood, and so it's plausible that this could have been a deific figure, this could have been a monastic figure. There's not enough to tell, but if you go and you start digging through the lore descriptions of all of the various knight things that you can find in the game, like so we have the Night Maiden and Sorceress puppets, used to summon the spirits of a Night Maiden and a Sorceress. These sisters, members of a cold-blooded race who wield flowing weapons, became puppets of their own volition. Long ago, the Nox invoked the ire of the Greater Will and were banished deep underground. Now they live under a false night sky in eternal anticipation of their liege, of the coming age of the stars, and their Lord of Night. Come on. Nox flowing hammer, forged from liquid metal from a silver tear. It is thoroughly tempered until hardened. Suspended droplet wielded by monks of the Eternal City. The Nox flowing sword, a grim weapon wielded by swordsmen of the Eternal City. This shottle has a blade as fine as a needle, forged from liquid metal of a silver tear, thoroughly hardened. I mean, we have all kinds of different callouts here, but I think the most important thing is the Night Lord that the Night Folk are waiting for is who we're being called to fight. So whose tragedy are we here to avert? And who are we really here to help, right? Are we here to serve a genuinely altruistic purpose? Or are we the agents of the destruction of the Night People? Are we the instruments the Greater Will chose to deal with the Night Folk, to make sure that their Lord of Night never comes to pass? Which, again, this is where you get to the point where you can start speculating wildly and we just don't have enough information, right? That blonde lady, you could speculate that's America if you wanted to. I certainly wouldn't call you out and say that's wrong. I think that's as plausible as any other blonde woman that we have to think about at this point in time. It could be an original character like Leto was. It could be America. It could be, who knows, right? It could be Mikola. I mean, it could be anybody at this point in time. And that's something that I called out in my all-game Strength Faith build Elden Ring video. Is it Strength Faith? I think it's going to become Strength Faith. It's probably Faith Dex right now. But, just the idea about crafting a good theory, the anatomy of a good theory is that your theory should fit your evidence should not fit your theory. And unless there is a substantial confirmation that goes beyond one's headcanon, every theory is valid. So I encourage you all to be kind to each other, and please be kind to me. But these are just my initial impressions. These are my initial thoughts. I'm also like, is that one of the giants? Is that one of the stone golems? That's interesting to think about. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I said at the top of the video, I'm not like a huge fan of hero games. They're kind of not so much for me. But I love Elden Ring. Obviously, we have a lot of lore to unpack here, and it also gives us an idea of the direction that Miyazaki is going to be moving the combat and the mobility and the environment of future FromSoft titles, be that additional things in Elden Ring or something else. It gives us an idea of where the series and where the franchises are likely going to go next. So what do you guys think? What are your theories? What are your callouts? Are you excited about the game? Do you hate it? Are you curious? Are you iffy about it? Are you going to give it a chance? I know I will. But as always, this is Eugene the author saying, you're awesome, be amazing, you already are. Take care, dreamers.